Well, we made it back home. There's just so much powder. I had to put a sled underneath the track to be able to tow it. Otherwise, there's way too much drag. So obviously getting towed home isn't a good thing. Basically what happened was we just had, 12 inches of really wet snow, and I was riding it around, and this was the kind of snow where I just had to keep the throttle pin wide open the entire time to get through it. Otherwise, I was getting stuck. Basically, I heard a loud pop, had lost all power, and it died maybe 10 seconds later, and I couldn't get it restarted. I'm 99% certain I know what the problem is already, because these JLOs are infamous for it, but we'll go through the diagnostic process and see if we can confirm what I'm already suspecting. First thing on this engine that I'm going to do is take the spark plugs out, and we'll just see kind of what condition those are in. Okay, so you just saw me pull them out. This one looks really good, and this one is super unhealthy. You can see, it's kind of a gray color, and there's just some speckled stuff on it. That's aluminum. You don't want to see that, folks. Next thing we're going to want to do is just a simple compression test. So we'll do our mag side cylinder first. And I'm holding the throttle open with my knee. And ideally, we're looking for like 120 plus. Okay, we're up to 130 on that one. Now time for the bad one. Nothing. That's not good either. So with the way that the spark plug looked, the fact that there's no compression, and the symptoms that it had when it did die, I'm going to say that I blew a hole in this piston. And you can see, I'll put it up on the screen like right here, I bore scoped it, and there's a pretty good size hole in that piston. If you look at the JLO Rockwell, it's fan cooled, but it's not like most fanners. Most fan-cooled engines have a tin shroud or plastic over the top and a fan that blows into the shroud, and then it can cool these two cylinders equally. These JLOs are really just infamous for blowing this PTO cylinder. The fan is here and it blows across the mag, and then this air goes over to the PTO side, and that's supposed to cool this too. Well, this PTO cylinder only ever gets the sloppy seconds from this one, so it never gets full cooling, and if you push them really hard, they just don't hold up. So we cooked this one. Guess we're gonna have to take it apart, put a whole new top end on it. Luckily, I've got new old stock snow stuff piston kit and piston rings. I could only ever find them for the 400, so we lucked out that I have a 400. I think they're pretty much non-existent for the 440s and 340s now. We're going to go ahead and get this thing popped apart. I guess first things first, the muffler needs to come off, or at least the exhaust manifold, and the carburetor that I just futzed around with last fall has to come off as well. Here's something new for once. None of the exhaust clamps are like totally rusted on here. So having the intake and exhaust off now, we can see in the exhaust, it's all white. And in the exhaust port, that's aluminum. Used to be piston. One thing I didn't expect to see though was little aluminum shavings and stuff in the intake manifold. That's not good. That means it went down and actually around into the bottom case. You can still see there's some in the intake too. Finding shavings in the intake is kind of concerning because now it could have contaminated my crank bearings, and I have to worry about getting anything out of the bottom of the case, because if I leave anything in there, it's just going to come up and back around and screw up our new piston. Before I go ahead and pull the cylinder head off, if you're enjoying this video, why don't you take a second and give me a big thumbs up. It'll really help this video out. And maybe even hit the subscribe button if you like this sort of content. Now for the moment of truth. I did have one stud that came out, so I'm going to have to reinstall that one. But, oh man, that is nasty. It's a hole about the size of a dime in that piston. I don't think I've ever seen one that bad. On the plus side, our cylinder walls don't look terrible. There's a little aluminum deposit going on right here, but we can clean that up. So, all in all, should be savable. The steel-lined cylinder really saved us on this one again. Alrighty, so it appears I've got a little dilemma here. Next order of business would be to take the cylinder off, and I'm looking at how to do that. It's not clamped down from the top. There's no bolts going through the cylinder. If we look down here, there's no bolts holding it on at the base. That's because there's studs underneath here that run here and down and get bolted on from the bottom. And the problem with that is they're underneath this bracket that holds the engine on. So I'm going to have to pull this engine out to get the cylinder off. I was hoping to avoid that because I'd have to realign the clutches after I pull the engine out, which I don't have a tool to align it, so I'm going to just have to eyeball it. Alright, here we go. Oh, guess I broke that one. Always remember to disconnect your wires, kids. And luckily I can just put a new ring connector on that and it'll be good as new, but yeah. Now that it's up on the bench, we can get a better look at those studs that I got to take off. The other ones are back under here. I think I'm going to leave this bracket on so I can use it to like realign the clutch later, because there's no adjustment in these holes. And we should be able to just unscrew those and pop them off. Pop the cylinder off, do what we need to do, and shove it back together. I'm not going to take the clutch off because I don't have a puller for it, and I don't really want to screw with it or mess it up in any way. So we're just going to have to kind of work around it right now. I think I was worried about clutch alignment for not much because there's basically no adjustment at all in this crossbar. So we should be able to just kind of put it back in where it goes. Now the cylinder should just pop right off of here. There we go. Oh boy. Ooh, there's a lot of metal chunks down in here. You can see just all these metal shavings. I shouldn't dump any more down there, but we're going to have to figure a way to clean that out. Overall, the cylinder isn't too bad. There's a lot of aluminum buildup right here at the top above the exhaust port where it like melted the most. But it should be able to clean up okay. Now we can go ahead and take our piston out. So careful not to drop things down into our crankcase, but luckily we have the circlips with the little ears on the end. It makes it way easier. So lastly I had to take the piston off, and I didn't record it because it was kind of being a pain. What happened here was the piston got so hot that it actually like made a little ridge in where the wrist pin goes, and I couldn't just press it out. So I ended up having to take a C-clamp and get it on there and press the wrist pin out. So it's a bit of a chore, but this is what we're left with. That's a decent sized hole. I think I'm going to make a little, you know, office desk pen holder out of it. I thought it was weird that we have these like thrust washer things. They were sitting on the sides of the bearing like this. So we have these on top in between the piston. That's going to be fun to put together. Try and hold those up there while we're jimmying it around. But there's not anything like this on the bottom to keep the pin from going back and forth like this. So, I don't know, these things are weird. We're just going to keep on trucking. So I think I'm going to end the video here. In the next one I'll take and clean the engine up, clean the cylinder up, install the stuff, get it all ready, and put back in the sled. So, if you want to stick around for that, hit the subscribe button. Give this video a like, and I'll see you next time.